December 3, 1945. Sugamo Prison, Tokyo. Admiral Chuichi Hara's hand moved steadily across the paper, writing words that would have earned him death just months earlier. The former commander of Cruiser Division 5, veteran of 7 major naval battles, was documenting a truth he had suspected since witnessing the carnage at the Philippine Sea. The Americans replaced their losses faster than we could count our victories. We were fighting the ocean itself. No matter how much water you destroy, more always comes. Outside his cell, the ruins of Tokyo stretched for miles, the once mighty capital reduced to ash and rubble by B-29 superfortresses that had appeared in numbers beyond Japanese comprehension. In the harbour, American warships larger than any Japan had imagined possible lay at anchor, their crews casually maintaining machines of war that represented more steel than entire Japanese cities had possessed. The interrogation rooms of Sugamo Prison had become confessionals, where Japan's naval leadership confronted a reality they had either ignored or been forbidden to acknowledge. They had challenged an industrial colossus that outproduced Japan not by percentages, but by orders of magnitude. The testimony being given to the United States Strategic Bombing Survey would reveal not just military defeat, but the complete fantasy of competing with American industrial capacity. What emerged from these sessions would be the most comprehensive admission of industrial inferiority in military history, senior Japanese officers meticulously documenting how they had led their nation into war against an enemy that could produce more aircraft in a month than Japan could in a year. The pre-war delusion, Yamamoto's warnings from America. The roots of Japan's fatal miscalculation stretched back to the 1920s. Admiral Yamamoto, who would later plan Pearl Harbor, spent 2 years at Harvard University, 1919 to 1921, and 2 years as naval attaché in Washington. He returned to Japan with warnings that fell on deaf ears. In documented correspondence from January 1941, Yamamoto wrote to Navy Minister Koshiro Oikawa, "Anyone who has seen the auto factories of Detroit and the oil fields of Texas knows that Japan lacks the power for a naval race with America." His assessment of American industrial capacity would prove prophetically accurate. Captain Minoru Genda, who would help plan Pearl Harbor, accompanied a military mission to the United States in 1940. His report documented visiting Boeing's Seattle plant, where B-17 flying fortresses rolled off assembly lines. The facility produced heavy bombers using mass production techniques that Japan could not replicate. Mitsubishi required 3 weeks for a twin-engine bomber that American factories completed in days. The ignored statistics. The Mitsubishi delegation visiting Douglas Aircraft in California counted 6,000 workers on a single shift producing DC-3 transports that would become C-47 military cargo planes. The entire Japanese aircraft industry employed 35,000 workers across all companies. This single American factory employed nearly 20% of Japan's total aircraft workforce. Yet these warnings were dismissed by the Imperial General Headquarters. Admiral Osami Nagano, Chief of the Naval General Staff, told Emperor Hirohito in September 1941, "American workers are soft, undisciplined. Their factories produce quantity without quality. Japanese spirit and superior training will overcome material disadvantage." The Navy Ministry's own statistics, revealed during post-war interrogations, showed Japan's senior leadership possessed accurate data about American capacity, but chose to ignore it. The United States in 1941 produced 19.4 million tons of steel annually. Japan produced 5.8 million tons. America refined 4.3 million barrels of oil daily. Japan had access to 55,000 barrels daily, mostly from conquered territories. Pearl Harbor's hidden message, the tactical victory that revealed strategic defeat. December 7, 1941. The attack on Pearl Harbor appeared to validate Japanese assumptions. 8 battleships damaged or sunk, 188 aircraft destroyed, 2,403 Americans killed. The Imperial Japanese Navy had seemingly crippled American Pacific naval power in 90 minutes. But Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, commanding the striking force, understood the deeper implications. In his post-war interrogation, he revealed his immediate concerns. "We found only old battleships, no carriers." But more troubling, the oil tanks remained untouched, the submarine base undamaged, the repair yards fully functional. Commander Minoru Genda, flying over Pearl Harbor as an observer, noticed something that chilled him. According to his later testimony to American interrogators, the harbor contained more auxiliary vessels, tenders, oilers, cargo ships, than the entire Japanese Navy possessed. These were not warships, merely support vessels, yet they outnumbered our battle fleet. The Pearl Harbor attack force had departed, believing they were striking America's primary Pacific naval base. They discovered Pearl Harbor was merely one of dozens of facilities. San Diego, Bremerton, Mare Island, Hunters Point, each base individually matched or exceeded Japan's primary naval facility at Yokosuka. The Coral Sea Revelation. When 3 days equaled 3 months, May 1942. The Battle of Coral Sea provided the first glimpse of American industrial resilience. The carrier USS Yorktown, severely damaged by Japanese bombs, limped back to Pearl Harbor. Japanese intelligence estimated repairs would require 3 to 6 months based on their own repair capabilities. Naval records show that Yorktown entered dry dock at Pearl Harbor on May 27th. Working around the clock, 1,400 workers swarmed over the carrier. Electricity came from rolling power plants brought alongside. Welding arcs lit the harbour like daylight. Steel plates pre-cut to specifications were ready waiting. In 72 hours, Yorktown was combat-ready, sailing for Midway on May 30th. In contrast, the Japanese carrier Shokaku, damaged at Coral Sea, required 11 weeks of repairs at Yokosuka. Post-war analysis revealed the disparity. American shipyards employed pneumatic tools, electric welders, and unlimited steel, while Japanese yards relied on manual labour and improvised materials. Midway. The numerical reality. 4 carriers lost. 0 chance of recovery. June 4, 1942. The Battle of Midway cost Japan 4 irreplaceable fleet carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. But the true defeat was not the ships lost, it was the revelation of replacement rates. Admiral Matome Ugaki, Yamamoto's chief of staff, recorded in his diary on June 10th, "The Americans will replace their losses within a year. We cannot replace ours in 10 years." He was optimistically wrong. America was already building Essex-class carriers, with the first commissioned in December 1942. By war's end, America would complete 17 Essex-class carriers alone, plus 9 Independence-class light carriers. Japan would complete only 3 more fleet carriers during the entire war. The disparity in aircraft was equally catastrophic. At Midway, Japan lost 248 aircraft and 110 irreplaceable veteran pilots. America lost 150 aircraft and 60 aircrew. Within 6 weeks, American carrier air groups were back to full strength with new planes and trained pilots. Japan never fully recovered its Midway losses. The Guadalcanal Grinder, where logistics became strategy. August 1942 to February 1943. The Guadalcanal campaign became a horrific demonstration of industrial capacity. Japan and America fought 7 major naval battles in those waters. The losses appeared roughly equivalent. America lost 29 ships, Japan lost 38. But the aftermath told the real story. According to USSBS interrogations, within 6 months of Guadalcanal's conclusion, the Americans appeared with a fleet larger than all ships they had lost. Japan struggled to replace even its destroyer losses. The Tokyo Express, Japanese destroyer runs to resupply Guadalcanal, revealed the logistical mismatch. Japanese destroyers, burning precious fuel, could deliver 240 tons of supplies per run at enormous risk. American Liberty ships, mass-produced at a rate of 3 per day, delivered 10,000 tons per voyage. One American cargo ship carried more than 40 Japanese destroyer runs. Japanese records show their forces on Guadalcanal suffered from severe malnutrition, with only 30% combat effectiveness by December 1942. American forces, meanwhile, complained about the monotony of their rations while consuming 4,700 calories daily. The production statistics, numbers that defied belief. By early 1943, Japanese naval intelligence possessed accurate figures of American production. The reports were so demoralizing they were classified above top secret. According to documents captured after the war, monthly production figures, March 1943. Aircraft, USA 7,200, Japan 650. Aircraft engines, USA 18,000, Japan 1,200. Pilots trained, USA 12,000, Japan 300. Warships launched, USA 48, Japan 3. Merchant ships, USA 140, Japan 8. Submarines, USA 8/Japan 2. Rear Admiral Sokichi Takagi, upon reading these figures at Naval General Staff, reportedly stated to colleagues, "If these numbers are even half true, we are already defeated." The numbers were not half true, they were conservative. American production was accelerating beyond Japanese ability to comprehend. The Willow Run plant alone produced 650 B-24 bombers monthly. Japan's entire heavy bomber production for the war totaled 15 aircraft. The Marianas Turkey Shoot. Technology meets training meets production. June 19th to 20th, 1944. The Battle of Philippine Sea demonstrated the culmination of industrial disparity. Japan scraped together 9 carriers with 473 aircraft for this decisive battle. America brought 15 carriers with 956 aircraft. Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa, commanding the Japanese fleet, testified in his USSBS interrogation. Our pilots averaged less than 200 flying hours training. We learned American pilots had 600 hours minimum. We had no fuel for training. They trained continuously. The technological gap was equally devastating. American carriers launched F-6F Hellcats, 2,000 horsepower engines, 6.50 caliber machine guns, self-sealing fuel tanks, armor plating. Japanese Zeros, virtually unchanged since 1940, had no armor, no self-sealing tanks, and were still powered by 950 horsepower engines. The results were numerical inevitability. Japan lost 476 aircraft and 3 carriers. America lost 130 aircraft and no ships. Japan lost 480 aircrew, 8 months of pilot training output. America lost 76 aircrew and replaced them within days from training programs producing 3,000 naval aviators monthly. The B-29 equation. When one bomber cost more than buildings. November 1944. The first B-29 superfortresses appeared over Tokyo, flying from Saipan. Each bomber cost $639,000, more than most Japanese government buildings. America built 3,970 of them. The B-29 program cost $3 billion, exceeding Japan's entire annual military budget. Each superfortress contained 55,000 parts manufactured to tolerances Japan could not measure. The pressurized cabins, remotely controlled gun turrets, and bombing computers represented technology Japan could not replicate with a decade of development. The B-29 raids revealed American industrial excess beyond Japanese comprehension. Bombers flew 1,500 miles from the Marianas, dropped their bombs, and flew back, a 3,000-mile round trip consuming 6,000 gallons of aviation fuel per aircraft. A 500-plane raid burned 3 million gallons of fuel, Japan's entire monthly aviation fuel production. The March 9th to 10th, 1945 raid on Tokyo dropped 1,665 tons of incendiary bombs, destroying 16 square miles of the city. This single raid dropped more bombs than the entire Japanese Air Force possessed in inventory. The Okinawa Quantitative Truth. 1,457 ships versus mathematical impossibility. April 1945. The invasion of Okinawa demonstrated American industrial might at its apex. The invasion fleet comprised 1,457 vessels, more ships than the Imperial Japanese Navy had operated in its entire history. Vice Admiral Takejiro Onishi, creator of the Kamikaze Corps, testified before his suicide. I counted over 100 destroyers just in the screening force. We have 11 destroyers remaining in the entire Navy. The Kamikaze campaign revealed the futility of courage against industrial output. Japan launched 1,900 kamikaze attacks at Okinawa. They sank 36 ships and damaged 368. Within 60 days, every lost ship was replaced, most damaged ships repaired. The supply operation for Okinawa defied Japanese understanding. Every day, transport ships delivered 50,000 tons of supplies: food, ammunition, fuel, medicine. Japan's merchant marine could not move 50,000 tons weekly to all forces combined. The submarine statistical reality: 2% of personnel, 60% of tonnage sunk. Throughout 1944 to 1945, American submarines systematically eliminated Japanese merchant shipping. America commissioned 228 submarines during the war. Japan built 126. More critically, America produced submarines on assembly lines, while Japan hand-built each boat. By January 1945, American submarines had sunk 60% of Japan's merchant fleet, 4.8 million tons. Japan's entire shipbuilding industry, working desperately, could produce 500,000 tons annually. America's Liberty ship program alone produced 500,000 tons monthly. The technological gap in submarines was insurmountable. American boats had air conditioning, cold storage for food, ice cream machines, washing machines. Japanese submarines operated in 120-degree heat, crews surviving on rice and pickled vegetables, developing scurvy and beriberi from malnutrition. The final statistics, when numbers tell the entire story. August 1945. Emperor Hirohito's surrender broadcast ended the war, but the tabulation of industrial disparity continued in occupation interrogation rooms. Japanese officers, freed from wartime censorship, revealed the true numbers to the United States Strategic Bombing Survey. Admiral Soemu Toyoda, final commander of the combined fleet, testified in November 1945. The United States had adequate raw materials, bountiful resources, and tremendous production capacity. Japan's steel supply was 6 million tons annually. America produced 80 to 100 million tons. Total war production: military aircraft, USA 324,750, Japan 76,320. Tanks, USA 88,410, Japan 2,515. Military trucks, USA 2,382,311, Japan 165,945. Aircraft carriers, USA 141, Japan 17. Battleships, USA 10/Japan 2. Cruisers, USA 48, Japan 6. Destroyers, USA 349, Japan 63. Submarines, USA 228, Japan 126. Yamamoto's documented prophecy: the admiral who knew the numbers. Admiral Yamamoto had been killed in April 1943, shot down by American P-38s in an operation made possible by breaking Japanese codes. But his pre-war assessments, documented in naval archives, proved prophetically accurate. In a letter to Navy Minister Oikawa dated September 1941, Yamamoto wrote, Should hostilities once break out between Japan and the United States, it would not be enough that we take Guam and the Philippines, nor even Hawaii and San Francisco. We would have to march into Washington and dictate the terms of peace in the White House. I wonder if our politicians have confidence as to the final outcome and are prepared to make the necessary sacrifices. His most prescient documented quote came from a letter to fellow Admiral Inoue Shigeyoshi. In the first 6 months to a year of war against the United States and Britain, I will run wild and win victory after victory. But after that I have utterly no confidence. The engineers' recognition. Technical officers understood the gap. Japanese technical officers provided the most detailed testimony about industrial disparity. Their engineering backgrounds allowed precise comprehension of American capabilities. During USSBS interrogations, naval constructors testified that American welding techniques were 5 years ahead of Japan's. Americans welded entire ship sections in factories, then assembled them like puzzles. Japan still riveted plates individually. One American shipyard worker accomplished what required 10 Japanese workers. The quality difference was equally striking. Examination of captured American equipment revealed that every part was machined to precise tolerances, interchangeable between aircraft. Japan hand-fitted parts individually. Americans mass-produced better quality than Japan could handcraft. The Occupation Revelations. When Victory Became Education. August 30th, 1945. General MacArthur landed at Atsugi Airfield to begin the occupation. The first weeks provided Japanese officers with overwhelming evidence of American industrial supremacy. The occupation fleet in Tokyo Bay consisted of hundreds of warships, more naval power than Japan ever possessed. This was not America's entire fleet, merely the convenient portion. Within weeks, Americans operated telephone networks, postal systems, radio stations, and transportation networks superior to anything Japan had built in decades. They repaired war damage faster than Japan had built original infrastructure. The food quantitative reality. Garryoa. $1.7 billion in aid. The occupation food distribution revealed American agricultural supremacy. Through Garryoa, government and relief in occupied areas, America provided $1.7 billion in aid, 59% of which was food and agricultural supplies totaling $1.19 billion. One Liberty ship carried 10,000 tons of wheat, enough to feed a Japanese city for months. Hundreds of these ships arrived, feeding Japan's entire nation as a logistical exercise, while America's own population experienced no shortages. Japanese agricultural experts reviewing American data discovered that one American farmer produced food for 27 people. One Japanese farmer barely fed his own family. America's agricultural surplus alone could sustain Japan's entire population. The oil numerical truth. 151:1, the impossible ratio. Japanese naval officers had always known oil was Japan's critical weakness, but occupation revelations showed the disparity exceeded worst estimates. Japan invaded the Dutch East Indies for 5 million tons of oil annually. America produced that amount every 4 days. Japan's best year produced 2.7 million barrels total. America produced 1.7 billion barrels annually, accounting for 60% of global production. The ratio was 151:1 in America's favor. This single statistic explained the entire war's outcome. The electronics chasm. From vacuum tubes to proximity fuses. The technological gap in electronics and radar proved insurmountable. By 1945, every American ship had multiple radar systems: search radar, fire control radar, navigation radar. Japan's best ships had one malfunctioning search set. The proximity fuse exemplified American industrial sophistication. Each anti-aircraft shell contained a miniature radar that detonated near aircraft, increasing lethality 5 to 10 times. Japan could not manufacture basic vacuum tubes reliably. America mass-produced 22 million proximity fuses, miniature radar systems, as ammunition. MIT's radiation laboratory employed 4,000 people and spent $1.5 billion developing 100-plus radar systems. Japan had only 300 staff in naval electrical research by August 1943. The human capital statistical truth: 250,000 pilots versus 45,000. Beyond material production, America's advantage in human capital proved decisive. America trained 250,000 pilots during the war. Japan trained 45,000. Japanese pilot training hours declined catastrophically. 1941, 600 to 700 hours for elite pilots. 1943, 275 hours, Navy, 130 hours, Army. 1944, 40 hours, Navy. 1945, 60 to 70 hours, Army. Meanwhile, American training hours increased throughout the war, reaching 525-plus hours average by 1944. Americans burned more fuel in training flights than Japan allocated for combat operations. The shipyard quantitative facts: Kaiser's 7 yards, 27% of all ships. Japanese naval architects visiting American shipyards after the war witnessed industrial capacity that defied comprehension. Kaiser's Richmond shipyards had employed 100,000 workers at peak production, more than Japan's entire shipbuilding workforce. Kaiser's 7 shipyards built 1,490 vessels, 27% of all maritime commission ships. The Richmond yards averaged 1 Liberty ship every 42 days, with the record-setting SS Robert E. Peary built in just 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes. The terminal testimony: senior officers face the numbers. The most comprehensive testimonies came from senior officers during USSBS interrogations. Admiral Mitsumasa Yonai, Navy Minister during the war, testified, "We knew the numbers but believed Yamato spirit could overcome material disadvantage. 1 Japanese soldier might equal 3 Americans in spirit, but 1 American factory equaled 50 Japanese factories in production." General Yoshijiro Umezu, Army Chief of Staff who signed the surrender, stated before his death in Sugamo Prison, "We fought the last war with the last war's thinking. We brought swords to a factory fight." The economic statistical reality: $341 billion versus $7 billion GDP. Post-war analysis revealed the economic impossibility of Japan's war effort. America's war expenditure totaled $341 billion. Japan's entire GDP for 1941 was approximately $7 billion. America spent more on the Manhattan Project, $2 billion, than Japan's entire government budget for 1943. The financial disparity was absolute. America financed war through bond sales, voluntarily purchased. Japan printed money to finance war, creating 300% inflation. The final numerical verdict: cumulative production, the impossible equation. The cumulative statistics revealed the quantitative impossibility of Japanese victory. Cumulative war production: military aircraft, USA 324,750, Japan 76,320, 4.3 to 1. Aircraft carriers: USA 141, Japan 17, 8.3 to 1. Submarines: USA 228, Japan 126, 1.8 to 1. Destroyers: USA 349, Japan 63, 5.5 to 1. Merchant ships: USA 33,993,230 tons, Japan 4,152,361 tons, 8.2 to 1. Oil production: USA 833 million tons, Japan 5.5 million tons, 151 to 1. Steel production: USA 334 million tons, Japan 24 million tons, 14 to 1. Aluminum: USA 2.8 million tons, Japan 375,000 tons, 7.5 to 1. Epilogue: The Peace of Production, From Defeat to Economic Miracle. The Japanese officers who testified about American industrial supremacy became unexpected architects of Japan's post-war economic miracle. Their witness to American production methods, learned in defeat, provided blueprints for peaceful prosperity. W. Edwards Deming arrived in 1950 to teach quality control methods to Japanese industry. His seminars, attended by Japan's top executives, transmitted the industrial knowledge that would fuel Japan's economic transformation. Companies founded by former military personnel applied American mass production techniques to consumer goods. By 1960, Japan was producing automobiles that competed with American cars. By 1970, Japanese electronics dominated world markets. By 1980, Japan had achieved through industry what it failed through conquest: global influence and respect. The testimony of Japanese military officers about American industrial supremacy stands as history's most complete admission of miscalculation. They discovered that modern war was not about courage but capacity, not about spirit but statistics, not about warriors but workers. 10 times the industrial capacity. In those 4 words lay the entire Pacific War's foregone conclusion. They never stood a chance, but in understanding why, they helped build a better world where production serves peace, industry serves humanity, and former enemies become partners in prosperity.